Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into it. This is episode 12 of Shankism. This is the Roman emperors or emperators, right? We know that Augustus Caesar will be the first emperor of Rome. And yes, as you see in the beloved statue there, he is holding on to a baby. Everyone knows that you get a baby attached to your leg when you become the first emperor of Rome. Not really. No, that's actually Cupid riding the dolphin, and kind of to symbolize his victory over Marc Antony. Marc Antony. All right, so you want to make sure that you write down that Augustus becomes the first emperor of Rome. That's the big one, okay? He does this in 27 BC, and this is kind of the official start time of the Roman Empire. They're no longer a republic, they are an empire. All right, so Augustus, as we know, the month August comes from, technically means exalted or like not chosen one, but consecrated one. Okay. So he ushers in this Pax Romana. Pax Romana, Pax means peace. Okay, so the term Pax Romana means Roman peace. And you need to write down that it lasts 200 years between the years 27 BCE and 180 CE. It is a 200-year period when we are now into CE or AD. Okay. So he does a lot of this, as we talked about in the bell ringer and we talked about in class. He does this through civil service, and he makes the road system set up to all the edges and the frontiers of this new expanding Roman Empire. And you can see how well constructed and time they spent on this was just very, very impressive. And the ones who are constructing this are actually the Roman soldiers. So the impact of Augustus's reign. So you do want to write the economy, which we know economy means money. So massive trade network is set up, like we said, roads and by sea. He is setting up this massive trade network. Okay. Common money throughout the empire. Imagine how difficult it would be today if each state had a different currency. At one point we did. We had Pennsylvania dollars, we had Virginia dollars, we had Maryland dollars, but eventually we got together and said, hey, things will make a lot more sense and be a lot more fluid if we all have the same exact currency. Maybe one day we'll have the same exact currency for everyone in the world. You won't have to exchange any money, because if you leave the country, you have to have an exchange rate, and that's all dependent on your country's GDP, basically how strong your dollar is compared to everyone else. Okay. Cool. So administration, he set up local administrators run by the people, but in turn, what I'm talking about here is government. It's the government. That's the civil service. It's government workers. You can't look at. Look at the map there. All reaches of northern Africa and Spain and what we know as France and parts of Germany, eventually into a little bit into Britain, throughout Asia Minor, into Egypt. They're all over the Mediterranean. You're not going to be able to control all of that without a strong civil service, government workers. We can't have America here running without a civil service with government workers. Okay, and he will stabilize the frontier with the governors that are at these provinces and these outer rim edges of the Roman Empire. Okay, so how do you choose an emperor? So problems faced by the empire. So now that we have this line of succession, we have Augustus being the first, and he kind of was very adamant about not saying he is an emperor till much later. You know, doing things that he actually gave the republic back. Like he gave it all of his quote unquote power back, but he didn't actually do that. He just said he was kind of doing that, but the steps he was doing was more and more being a complete ruler, absolute ruler. Okay, so creating succession through family led to problems, because you'll have family disputes. If you know that you're next in line, but you also have a brother, you might want to kill your brother. Maybe if you have an uncle that maybe has more of a legit, legit cause to the throne, you might have him killed. So a lot of family disputes. Everyone wants to be the top dog. Everyone wants to be the emperor of Rome, to have complete and utter control, to do whatever you want. Okay, sounds pretty good, and a lot of people wanted it. So how do you establish qualified leaders? Okay, that was another problem that they had. Okay, and how to remove poor emperors, which you'll see here very shortly. Okay, there's going to be a lot of poor emperors. Okay, I don't mean as in financially poor. I mean poor as in they just stink at what they do. They're just not very good emperors. They're more concerned about making their lives better than everyone else's. Because that's the job of an emperor. The job of an emperor is to manage an entire country, an entire empire, and everybody that's inside of that. Okay, Augustus will eventually be succeeded by his stepson Tiberius, so they're still keeping it in this family. Okay, but let's talk a little bit about the bad emperors of Rome. So one that comes to mind is Caligula, Caligula, from 12 AD to 41 AD. And it does help to write these down. I do want you writing down Caligula and the dates. That way you get an idea of kind of where I am at in this time. At this point, Jesus Christ would be 12 years old. Okay. His name is actually Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus. I know it's a mouthful. He actually gets the Germanicus from his father. His father conquered parts of Germany, and when he was over there, he was a small boy when his father was doing all this, and he had these little military boots. And so what his nickname kind of became was Caligula. So people sort of call him Caligula because when you have Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, that's basically what Julius Caesar's name was and basically what Augustus Caesar's name was. So how do you make them different? You call him Caligula. Caligula meant little boots. He's like, oh, look at you, little boots. By the way, he would not have been called Caligula back in his day. Everyone would have called him by that name, Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus, Gaius. He hated Caligula. You could lose your head if you called him Caligula. Okay, you'll see how he becomes very mad very quickly. All right, so he'll rule for, as you see, that 37 to 41 AD, 4 years. 4 years in power. I think he gets in when he's around 26 or so. Okay, he'll start off as a good ruler. He'll actually do a lot for the people. He'll kind of throw lots of games and cut taxes and things like that. But after 6 months, he turns evil, quote unquote. All right, he becomes this evil emperor, and he's often considered insane. And here's why. First one here you want to put down: he went to war with Neptune. For those of you who don't know your Roman gods yet, shame on you. But Neptune is the god of the sea. And so how do you wage war, the god of sea? Because Caligula wanted to be this, general ruler who would conquer faraway lands and be victorious and have everyone love him because of all his conquering. So he's going to go, and the new place to conquer is going to be Britain, because Julius Caesar got in there but didn't do a whole lot there. So he wanted to do what Julius Caesar couldn't do, conquer Britain. So if you know anything about crossing over from Europe to actually into Britain, there's the English Channel, and it's typically very choppy, very difficult to cross, especially in ancient times. And he kind of saw that, and he marched up with all these legions of armies and said, I don't really think so. And he said, all right, well, we'll stab the water, and we'll defeat Neptune. So he had his soldiers stab the water. They stabbed water, and he claimed victory. And in Rome, when you're victorious, you have the spoils of war, and the spoils of war typically are money, slaves, and the captured leader of that group, amongst other things. Well, if you defeat Neptune, the god of the sea, what do? Take some water home? Maybe. They took seashells. Their soldiers had to collect seashells as their, it's called booty, okay, as what they collected. Okay. Also tried to appoint his horse as a senator or a consul. Okay, I've heard both. All right. Now, he loved this horse very much. It was mentioned quite a bit, but it's just weird to try to, your horse isn't going to run any position in the government whatsoever. It's a horse. But a lot of people also say maybe he was just doing this to show the senators, like, you have absolutely no authority here whatsoever. I could elect this, my favorite horse, to be to do your job because you do nothing. So maybe it was a slap in the face, or maybe legitimately he thought that his horse was talking and like, hey, make a great senator or a great consul. Well, when you do things like this, you neglect the people. People tend to get very upset, and eventually his own guards will assassinate him. His own guards will assassinate him. I believe after he was coming home from, like, he would watch some theater, and they kind of the Praetorian Guard assassinated him. Okay. And he says here, I don't care if they respect me so long as they fear me. That's crazy. It doesn't care about the respect thing, it cares about the fear. And that just kind of shows you that these are the signs of a megalomaniac. Okay. So that is Caligula. Okay. And during this scramble, so basically what happens is everyone that was related pretty much to him is taken out. Anybody that's related to Caligula is taken out, and cowering behind a curtain was his uncle Claudius. Okay, Claudius was not really a bad emperor, and you do want to write down Claudius, and you do want to write down the dates. Okay, it is Caligulia's uncle, but that's not what you would want to write down. You want to write down when you see it in purple. He came to power by bribing the guards, by bribing the Praetorian Guards. Okay, after his nephew's assassination. So everyone, it's kind of chaotic. The emperor's been assassinated. His relatives and so forth are gone, or some people will be murdered, and he's cowering behind it. Hey, I'll give you a bunch of gold if you just don't kill me and, I don't know, make me emperor. And Praetorian Guard, well, if your job is, as the Praetorian Guard, the people who guard the emperor, your job is to guard it. Guess what? You have to have an emperor to guard, and the pay's pretty good. The job security is very good. So they could have restored the republic. They could have went back to a republic, but they didn't because they needed a job. Okay. You want to write down that he succeeded in conquering Britain. So he gets credit, not his nephew, not Caligula. Caligula just stabbed water and claimed victory over Neptune. So he doesn't conquer all of Britain, Claudius does not, but he does get credit for some of that. He also built the Aqua Claudia. If you don't know, Aqua Claudia is an aqueduct, aqua, water. An aqueduct, as we will learn in the next section, it's basically how Rome existed at all, because they have water from far away, rivers and mountains and so forth, bringing in millions of gallons of water daily into Rome, and some of the freshest water you'll ever have. Yes, he does marry his niece. Claudius does marry his niece. Again, this is not something that's uncommon. It's definitely frowned upon at this point in ancient history. It's definitely frowned upon to be marrying a relative like this. Her name was Agrippina. Agrippina, after she basically convinces Claudius, hey, you should appoint my son as the next emperor, my young 17-year-old son from another relationship, as the heir. And as soon as he did, and keep in mind, Claudius had another heir, he had a son, just flaked on his actual son and went to Nero. And she poisoned him. As soon as it happened, all right, you're dead. You're done, son. Okay? So Claudius, one of his quotes is, to do no evil is good. To intend none is better. Okay? Claudius. Let that stir in the pot for a little bit. All right, so Nero's now in power at the young age of around 17. Okay, you want to write down Nero. Nero was a good administrator, but a vicious ruler. Like, he was vicious. Okay, you want to put down that he is one of the first rulers to persecute Christians. So Christianity is now a thing. We haven't talked about Christianity yet, but we will. Okay, keep in mind Jesus died in around 33 AD. So Christianity's been around for about 21 years, or, well, more than that at that, maybe 20, 30, depending on when the first actual persecution was, but we'll say between 30 and 40 years. Okay, Christianity had been around, but it's a cult. It's not like poof, it's 2 billion people. It is very, very small, very, very weird to a lot of people. Keep in mind, Rome is polytheistic. Rome has gods like Neptune and Mars and Venus and Jupiter. They don't believe in one god controlling everything. Okay, they just copied, remember, off of the Greeks. Nero planned or Christianity was new and the Romans were polytheistic. Like I said, Nero blamed the country's problems on them. This is what you see throughout history. You see a small minority, a very easy target, blame all your problems on them, whether it be your religion. Jews got a lot of this a lot of the time. They get the blame for a lot of things. It's not their fault, but they just get blamed. Or, ethnic minority, just people from a different background. They'll just blame you. It's all your fault. And people jump on the majority of populations jump on that. So Agrippina, if you remember Agrippina, his mom, who got him into power in the first place, she is killed by Nero. Not physically by Nero, but Nero has the guards come because Agrippina's like, my son is crazy. So she tried to have him killed several times, and somehow Nero made it out. So Nero eventually found out about this and had her killed. And allegedly, when the guards came, the Praetorian guards came to take her away to kill her, they told her to stab her in the stomach. Why? Because that is the womb that bore this such ungrateful and evil and malicious child. Basically, hey, this stomach is what brought Nero into the world. Bad stomach. Bad stomach. Okay. You do want to put down he possibly is responsible for the Great Fire in Rome. So there's a lot of different points at which Rome burns the ground. This is in I think the 60s AD. I can't remember exactly when, but Rome burns, and allegedly once it does burn, after what's left of it, okay, he confiscates that property and builds what's known as the Domus Aurea. So he just builds like an immense amount of property that once was the public's, now is his, for basically so he can build more of his giant house. And things are made out of gold, like the walls. It's like the most extravagant thing you've ever seen in your entire life. Okay, the golden house, golden toilets and jewelry and all the most expensive ivory and everything you can possibly think of is there. Okay, and allegedly when it was finally constructed and built, and he said, "Ugh, finally, a house fit for a human." Okay, meanwhile, there's people starving in the streets who don't have a home whatsoever. Okay. At that point, Nero was declared a public enemy by the Senate. So the Senate's still around. Don't think that they're not. But at this point, they're left with no other option. They have to say he is an enemy of the public. He is hurting Rome. Okay, and they're after him. And I think he kind of is by himself besides his slave. He is like his personal slave, and he commits a suicide with help from his slave. Okay, and he says right before he dies, allegedly, "What an artist dies in me." Okay, and if you don't know, Nero was one of the Roman emperors who really, really loved the arts, the plays and dramas and so forth and all that. He loved to act, but that was an extremely low profession. We're like bottom of the barrel profession. It's not like it is today where we have celebrities now who are all actors. Actors was like the lowest form you could get. Okay. So moving on, we're not covering all the emperors, but we are covering some of the more important ones. Okay. There is 5 good emperors. There's more than that, but there's a string of 5 good emperors. Right. The first one here is Nerva. Okay, and Nerva is only in power from 96 to 98 AD. It's about it's 15 months. And what you do want to write down about him is he began the custom of adopting heirs. Heirs means like the next person in line. So it no longer came up to, hey, let's somebody that you're related to or somebody your best buddy. As soon as you came into power, you selected who you believe was going to rule after you, and you train them kind of to be the next emperor of Rome. You adopt them as your son. So you might adopt somebody as your son who's, I don't know, a year younger than you, maybe, or 2 years, or a couple years, or your same age, or even older. Okay, but he will die of natural causes. Unfortunately for Nerva, he had the nerve to die early. Okay. So continuing the good emperors, the second one here is Trajan. Okay. The first dates I give you here, 53 to 117 AD, those are his birth years. The second dates are the years that he ruled. So he's a powerful military ruler, but that's not, the main thing. There's more to him than that. He'll be in power about 19 or so years, but what you do want to write down that he expanded the empire to its greatest extent. So because he was such a military-driven general, Rome had never been larger. Their reach had never been further, okay, than with Trajan. Okay, he created many public buildings, the Trajan baths. Yes, the baths, like you take a bath. Okay, the Trajan Forum, as we talked about before, what a forum is. A forum is a public marketplace where they meet up. The people loved forums. Trajan's column, a column that holds up a building, but these are just columns by themselves. These columns were kind of signs of what you've done. So basically this entire column, as you saw from the preview of the intro, is that it shows basically all of his military conquest on one column, all of your life on one column. Like imagine if throughout all your achievements, all your big accomplishments that you have in your entire life are put onto a spiraling column, and Trajan will die of natural causes. No crazy assassinations, just died. No suicides, just natural causes. Hey, he's doing his job. He's doing it well. No one needs to kill him. Okay, so what I'm talking about here, the column is there, right? That's on your left there. Okay, it's what a column there would look like on Trajan's columns. This is in Rome. This is all in Rome here. What the forum would have looked like as you see it over there, that open marketplace. It's like a square or rectangle. And then the baths. Rome loved their baths. They would hang out all day doing their bath thing. Okay, you can see a little bath there in the middle. Hot baths, cold baths, steam rooms, oil rooms, massage rooms. Okay, lifting some weights, doing things like that. They would spend all day there. That's their form of relaxation. Fourth one here. Well, third one we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about all five. Okay. I might. Hadrian is the next one here. Hadrian's another important one. He's actually the first emperor who is not from Italy. All the other ones are from like mainland Italy, like right in or around the city of Rome. But he is not. He hails from Hispania. For those of you who don't know, hails kind of means that it's where he comes from. And Hispania, if you picked up on that, it means Spain. Yes. Rome did not just say Spain, they say it's Hispania. Like Britain, they would say Britannia. London, Londinium. That's where these places start. That's the names that they were given because that's the names that they called them. Okay. He consolidated the power and territory that Trajan had acquired. So he was no longer concerned about this policy of constantly expanding the Roman Empire. He was like, listen, dude, we got enough stuff here. Let's chill. Let's relax. Let's just border up our walls. Let's build a bunch of walls and just call it a day. No more advancing. So that's what he does. He fortifies the frontier in Britain with a wall. It's called, guess what? Very, very unique name here. Hadrian's Wall. Okay. Hadrian's Wall it not entirely separates where Scotland is. Okay. But if you look at it here, Hadrian's Wall is the conquest of Britain. So they basically said that this is as far as we go. We're not going any further because if you know anything about the geography, it gets very, very mountainous the more north you go. Cold, wet, miserable. So Hadrian's like, we don't even want that. Let those crazy barbarians to the north there in Scotland, let them be. Just let them be. Okay? And so they built this, I think it's like a 70-some mile wall. I always forget how exactly long, but it's at its narrowest point, really, of where they could do it. They wanted to make the wall as defensible as possible. Okay, so if you go there today, it's not going to obviously be as large as it was because it just fell into disrepair, and you're talking 1,800 years worth of deterioration with weather and other people taking it for building materials, but it's still there. The foundation's still there, and they had people manning the walls. Okay, they had barracks there and whole cities, as you can see, Walton and Carlisle and Brampton and Walt Whistle, and these places all started in their cities today because of this wall. That's why there are cities there today, because of a wall built, because where the soldiers went, that's where everything was. That's where the women went. That's where the supplies went. That's where trade went. They have to help out these soldiers. Okay. Hadrian, you also want to put this down. He rebuilt the Pantheon. Now, I haven't talked about what the Pantheon is exactly yet, but I will very, very shortly. Okay. And it's built and modified during Augustus's reign. As you can see, what makes it so incredible is it's a dome. There's a dome in the back. You have this. It was the largest dome in Europe up until, as we'll talk about, the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople. Okay, I've seen this. It is definitely incredible. Just massive, massive columns. There's Corinthian columns that are in there, and then you have this dome in the background. Okay, kind of the oculus being there in the middle. You can kind of see those pictures. But so he rebuilt it, kind of restructured it, and continued it. Okay, the fourth emperor here, Antoninus Pius or Pius, right? Basically, he did his job, and you just want to put he ruled peacefully. The thing is that if you're doing your job, unfortunately, and you're not being, electing your horse consul or stabbing water, then you're gonna rule peacefully. No one's gonna want to assassinate you, and you just kind of live your life. But he did deify Hadrian. So what deify means is to make them a god. So Julius Caesar was the first to be deified. So Rome started to make their emperors or Julius Caesar be a dictator into gods, but only after they died. Unless you're Caligula, and then Caligula wanted to be an emperor, wanted to be a god while he was living. He was literally, this is how crazy Caligula was. He was literally putting massive statues of himself all throughout his empire because he wanted to be seen as a god. And the Jews in Jerusalem did not like that because, again, they only worship what? What'd you say? One God. Exactly. One God. They were super mad about that, and that will be a whole war over that. But he'll just be a skilled administrator and builder, and there's not a whole lot with Antoninus Pius. So the last one, and this kind of marks the end of the Pax Romana, which we know means the Roman peace. This is Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius. Okay. He is the philosopher emperor, right? My favorite, for sure, because he'll write the Meditations, and it's based on Stoicism. And, as I've said before, I am a semi-practicing Stoic. And what the Meditations are, it's basically his personal journal. He never meant for this to be published. And it goes all of the Stoic philosophy on written down in it. Okay, and keep in mind he is the most powerful man in the world, and you can do anything that you want if you're the emperor of Rome. But he treated the job with the utmost respect for everyone included. Just kind of kept a level head, never let the ego get to him, because when you have that much money, that much power, that many people groveling over you, it gets to your head. But he was able to maintain his cool the entire time, think with a level head always, and encounter every problem he solved with logic and reasoning. Okay, he will have several military campaigns against Germanic tribes to the north and the east of Rome, so he does have to deal with outside forces. Yes, it is the Pax Romana. Yes, Marcus Aurelius is the end of the peace, but that kind of marks the end for him. Okay, with those campaigns, he names his son co-emperor to take over after him, which he ends the concept of adopting your heirs, which was weird. Everyone and historians to this day are like, "What? Like, why did you do that? You are one of the wisest and one of the greatest emperors that Rome had ever known. But yet you do this? Like, why would you do that?" Um, we don't know. We don't know. We'll go over many quotes by Marcus Aurelius in class. His son is Commodus. Commodus, a Roman emperor, for about 15 years. Commodus was the son of the great Marcus Aurelius, like I said. The 5 good emperors, that string that happens there, after Marcus Aurelius, it is over. They don't consider these good emperors anymore. He is responsible for devaluing the Roman currency. So currency doesn't get you any far. This is called inflation. Inflation. He causes inflation. He just doesn't care. Doesn't care about actually helping out the people of Rome. He likes all this power. He was tired of state affairs. Ugh, government. Ugh, it's beneath me. Well, you can't think like that when you're in charge of all of the government. He'll take part in stage gladiator fights. If you've ever watched the movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe, and that's one of the scenes from that, he does go into the arena and fight against gladiators. Okay, because he thought that he was just this great warrior, but he had never seen actual battle. I mean, he was skilled, but he wasn't like this great individual. He took part, like I said, in those fights, and he would always win, always. And especially too, if you're a gladiator, you can't hurt the emperor. You hurt the emperor, you're dead. You scratch him, you're dead. So you don't want that. So he is going to be assassinated, ironically, by a gladiator, his personal gladiator, because he just became so insane, so corrupt, that it was the whole of Rome was plummeted into the ground. If someone didn't step up and kill him, you would have had longer. He was young. He was young when he died. Probably I think when he was 30s. Okay, yeah, he was in his 30s. Other emperors to know. Okay, in 284 CE, by the man named Diocletian. Diocletian divides the empire. In a way I have of remembering this is Dio, divide, Dio, divide, Dio, divide. So Diocletian realizes, this is well after Commodus, that the empire is so massive. Okay, the empire, he divided it so the Greeks were in the east with Greece, Anatolia, Syria, Egypt, and in the west is Italy, Gaul, Britain, and Spain. So if you look at the map here, in the west, this is where you have the sum of Rome. This is where you have Gaul and Spain, and he said, we'll have an emperor rule over there, and he'll be in control of all that there. And then the east, what you see in orange, we'll have another emperor control that. So we have like 2 emperors. This is where Greece is, and then Constantinople, and Asia Minor, and Jerusalem, and Egypt. Okay, because splitting it up made sense because there's just so much to manage. It was too big for its own good. Okay, that'd be like splitting up America today, where let's say from every city, every bit of territory west of Chicago is now the Western American Empire, and everything east is the Eastern American Empire. And you have 2 presidents, one on the west and one on the east. It's essentially what's going on here. That's Diocletian. Another emperor here is Constantine. You want to write him down, as well as Diocletian before, well, of all these emperors. Okay, Constantine will make Christianity legal. So Christianity had been growing for around 300 years. And Constantine, if you go back here, Constantine was not originally Christian. Essentially what he did was he got and gathered a bunch of different priests from different religions and was trying to figure out which one would win him the battle, which one would secure his emperorship. Okay, and Christianity won out. Allegedly, he saw a sign in the sky, and he was in a dream, and in the dream he saw the cross, and so he was to have all of his soldiers draw a cross on their shields, and then they would win the battle, and he'd become emperor. So it's exactly what he does when he goes to the priest and asks, well, what is this all about? And he wins and becomes emperor of Rome. Okay, and when he does that, he makes it Christianity legal, because before it was illegal to be Christian. You were in the Roman Empire and you were Christian, it was illegal to be a Christian. Okay, Constantine made Constantinople the capital of 330 CE. Why Constantine is so important, especially for the world of Christianity, because probably many of you are Christian. Okay, once he stops persecuting Christianity, Christianity grows because everyone wants to be like the emperor. Everyone wants to be the emperor. Everyone wants to be like the emperor. Everyone wants the emperor to like them. So they started converting to Christianity. And he moves the capital in 330 CE. Okay, he'll move the capital. It became the first emperor to accept it as its religion. Okay, like I said, Christianity. And what I mean by that is, do you see where Rome is right there? Okay, he'll move it to Constantinople. Why do they call it Constantinople? Because it's named after Constantine, city of Constantine. Before that, it was a Greek city-state called Byzantium. So it started out as Byzantium. Constantine says, you know what? Rome in the West is dying. I need to get out of here. I need to get rid of this. And so he moves the capital, basically just moves east and goes to Constantinople. It's almost a direct line just over the Adriatic Sea and throughout northern Greece, which we know kind of as Macedonia, and then to the Bosphorus Strait. Okay. Well, over time, the West kept falling and falling into disrepair, and slowly Britain fell apart, and slowly Gaul and Spain fell apart, and really the only thing left was just Italy itself. Okay, in the West, but in the East, it's thriving. It's thriving because of that city, Constantinople, because Constantinople is the center of trade throughout anywhere in Asia. Everyone stops there in Constantinople, and it became super duper rich. Okay, and people kept hearing about that. And one guy in particular, as you see up there, Attila the Hun, came in with 100,000 or so individuals, 100,000 or so men on horseback. Okay, and Attila just absolutely caused chaos throughout what you see here in the Western Roman Empire. He tried a few times to get into Constantinople. The walls of Constantinople kind of kept him away, but he just kind of pushes all those Germanic tribes that were there away and into Rome, and causes so much mass confusion and chaos. Okay, so what you want to write down for the Huns, because the Huns are in your book as well, they're a nomadic tribe from Central Asia. They're mad because they have no homes, because they're on horses. They're like portable teepees. They're just kind of going out and sleeping on the dirt or sleeping on their horse. Okay, Central Asia they're coming from, and they're coming west into Europe. So the Huns continued to push the Germanic groups further into Roman territory until they also became a threat to Rome, because the Germanic tribes had nowhere else to go. Only place they could go was south into Rome or into Roman territory. Eventually, the Rome had to be like, all right, well, we have to accept you in there. We don't have a choice. Okay. The Huns were first united by their leader Attila. Like I said, they're first united. That's what he's kind of known for, uniting all these Huns. The Huns will eventually negotiate a truce with Pope Leo I. Okay, so basically, you need to know that Attila is coming with his Huns from Central Asia, and after he had united them, and threatens Rome and pushes Rome into Western Rome into downward spiral. Okay, so the fall of Rome. Let's go over some of the reasons why the fall of Rome happened. Okay, 4 main reasons. So, economic decline. The value of money went down. Inflation happened. Okay, social unrest. Okay, meaning that the people were very that were poor, were out of a job, and didn't trust all these new people that were coming in, and the economy was like everything was just kind of falling apart, and people were getting super upset. Political decay. You had one period where in 50 years you have 25 emperors. If you're trying to be an emperor, it's incredibly difficult to get and even harder to maintain, because people would try to assassinate you all the time. Okay, and military upheaval. the military would um, they just didn't have the military might. They didn't have the legions like they had before. They had to call in mercenaries. They had to get them to fight because like we don't have enough people to fight. No one was loyal. No one was patriotic anymore. Like the idea of Rome went away. Like Rome used to be like this powerful juggernaut of a country. Kind of how we have all this massive patriotism for America, and we think America is the greatest country in the world. That's how the Romans thought. But imagine if in America people were not patriotic, they didn't trust their government. There's a lot of social unrest, meaning like riots in the streets. Um, they didn't trust, like I said, didn't trust the government. The value of the dollar declined in America. Yeah, America would be falling at that point. Okay. But you need to write all of those down. Those are all the reasons. So those are general reasons, and I broke down what the specific reasons for them. So you need to understand what economic decline means, and social unrest, and what political decay mean, and military upheaval mean. Okay? And you want to write down by 476 AD, the Roman Empire will fall. That's one of the dates you have to know. And it's the Western Roman Empire that falls, because the Eastern Roman Empire, which will be later known as the Byzantines, does not fall. Does not fall. Not until 1453 AD. It'll be another 1,000 years roughly before the eastern side falls. So only 500 years ago, the eastern side of the Roman Empire fell. Crazy. We'll talk about that later, next unit. We talk about the Byzantines. Okay. Whoa. All right. So that was the Roman Emperors, episode 12 of Shankism. This has been your host, Mr. Shank. I hope you enjoyed it. If not, well, oh well. All right. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.